Well, hey there, it's Pastor Brad here, and I am just responding to something that has been a issue throughout my ministry, and not really an issue, but an interesting point. You may or may not know, I love reading. I love reading great classic works of literature. It was a love that started early on. I grew up in a reading household that valued that. I had wonderful teachers in the school system who brought about the life and interest and edification, but also because I'm a Christian, a believer, I am used to deriving meaning and importance from text value in understanding stories, whether it's illustrative or just helping to understand ourselves. There's just so much value in reading in general, and specifically in reading great literature and great books. And so I will tend to use those as sermon illustrations with some frequency. And one of the things that I get most often is the statement that, oh, well, you got me interested. And I tried to read that, but oh my goodness, I couldn't. I couldn't get through it. I tried to read, Dickens because you made it sound so fun, and then I gave up after a chapter or a page. And with this comes that kind of interesting presupposition that, like, oh, it's something that's inherent in a person that makes them a good reader or a poor reader. And what I'd like to put forth is that it's really about the time and effort that you put into it, and a couple simple things that people fail to do or have never been taught to do make it difficult, or if not impossible, to enjoy reading classic literature like Dickens, Dostoevsky, Austen Hardy. Name all those great classics. One of my favorites of all time, Moby Dick, right, is universally derided, or almost universally derided, because it's just so weird, hard, far away. And so I'm going to give you just some quick tips today that hopefully will help you derive enjoyment from studying and reading great books and great works of literature. Because I assure you, there's no intelligence or nothing special about me that makes this possible. It's that I've learned the hacks, the tricks, the cheats that get us there. And there's three simple steps. The first one is you want to get the background, okay? You want to find out and set the scene. You see, just like when reading the Bible, you're approaching a book that was written in a different time, in a different culture, and oftentimes even in a different language. And even if you talk about going back to Dickensian English, right, the language itself has changed a great deal since then. So when it comes to thinking about this, you don't have the scene, the background. Most of them did not say, it is this year, and this year we eat this way and sleep this way and drink this way and blah, 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 blah. And these are the popular beverages and these are the interesting foods and this is the news. They don't give you any of that information. You see, this is one of the big things, and it's easier to get than ever before. But if you just come expecting to understand what's going on in a classic novel, of course you're going to be confused. Of course it's going to be an absolute nightmare. So there's lots of different ways that you can set the scene. You can understand the background, the setting, and that starts with getting your background on the author and the time in which that author lived. Try to find out what, not just your kind of Renaissance fair perspective of what that time was like, but really try to get some helpful background on what the events of the day, what the government was doing, what the movements politically were. And it's not going to help you catch every reference as passes, just as in a good show or movie, you're going to get references to politics or references to different other shows or groups or entertainment. So set the scene by learning about the scene, and then meet the author. Find out what they're known for, what they're good at, what they're important for. Again, you can find information like this for free on the internet, on various sites that are designed just to help you read. That's not cheating. That is the only sensible thing to do. Just like when you come to the Word of God, hopefully you're looking to tools and people to help you understand it more. Hopefully you've got a pastor and Bible teachers in your church that are helping you dig in further. This is the same thing. It's the same idea. You don't know what you don't know, and that's why we wind up feeling so very lost. And finally, if you'd like, or I highly recommend if you can find one, and they're not hard to find, is a spoiler-free primer. You can find one paragraph premises. You can find larger ones. Even your AI models will usually have the ability to give you exactly what you need to get the background. Just like you never go to a movie, or almost never will probably go to a movie where you haven't seen previews and have some idea what it's about, right? That's just part of going to a film anymore, and we totally understand that. if you are coming in with a wrong or incorrect idea about what this book's about chiefly, then you are probably going to be disappointed. You go to lift the glass that you're expecting to be milk and you find it's filled with Sprite and you spit it out. Why? Not because you don't like Sprite, but because you were expecting milk. And that is exactly what happens in the context of reading a classic novel. You expected something else and you're not getting it and you're frustrated with that. Okay, so next, moving from getting that background, which, by the way, great videos are available. There's so many ways to get that background quickly, easily. You don't have to, go buy 10 other books as one might, or go to college to do that. It can all be found totally for free on the internet, and along with the books themselves if you go to Project Gutenberg. Nevertheless, some helpful tools that I would recommend you check out. First of all, study guides. There are plenty of study guides. In my generation, it was Cliff's Notes. And it's interesting because I was raised in a world where every literature class I ever took would say, oh, getting the Cliff's Notes, that's cheating. And I would say reading the Cliff's Notes instead of reading the work of literature is cheating. But using that tool for what it's designed to do, help you bridge the gaps and come to an understanding and appreciation of what to see, it's like having a tour guide. So SparkNotes, CliffsNotes, and the various other resources that you can find are something that you should absolutely use. And I go through every chapter synopsis almost every time I read through a new book, whether it's by Dickens or anyone else. Just go, did I miss something? I'm very frequently reporting back to some other trusted source. It could be just, something that AI threw together or whatever. But the point is that, rather than just get frustrated and discouraged and feel like you're 10 chapters in, but you don't know what's going on, get the recap, however you can get that. Next, character lists. Most classic novels, especially ones that go into other cultures, such as Spanish or Russian culture, the naming conventions are super difficult to follow. That's not your fault. That's a legitimate difference. So what do? Well, there's plenty of sources that can give you a character list to print out and maybe put in the flyleaf of your book or keep readily available to yourself. Many editions will even have those kinds of study guides, helps, and character lists to keep things straight. Or if you want to be really diligent, just keep a running tally of characters as you meet them and the interesting information. But again, that's what I recommend. Next, mentioned this already, chapter summaries. Get the chapter summaries of every single chapter. Again, your AI can do this, not totally reliably at this point, but maybe later. But there are dozens and dozens of sites that have that exact ability. Next, audiobooks are a great tool. If you're working through a large Dickens novel, you're working through Little Dorrit, or you're working through A Tale of Two Cities, there is a lot going on, and you're sometimes just not going to have the acuity to simply read. You're going to get distracted. And so it's very helpful, and this is a Bible trick as well, get the audiobook and read along as you play it. If you're on Amazon Kindle, will even has devices that will do this where you can just read along with the narrator. And a great narrator can bring drama and interest to the story in a way, and the humor out of the story in a way that you can't imagine if you haven't done it. And the wonderful thing is, this world, if you don't have the resources, means, or access to buy these books on audio, which are now more available than ever, you can also go to LibriVox.com, and it's entirely free audio recordings done crowdsourced, but very good in many cases. So the audiobook is not cheating, right? I mean, I have no problem with a person totally listening to an audiobook rather than reading it, if that's kind of how you're built. But if you are, just because you want to say, I read it, doesn't mean that you can't use that as a tool. In fact, I will very frequently, on a very difficult book, be listening to it at night as I fall asleep, and then come back to my book and catch up to where I was, and not really leapfrogging, but moving through it that way. Finally, there are tons and tons and tons of video essays, some good, some bad, but they can be super helpful as a sort of impromptu book club to get other people's insights and the background from all those people who were lit majors in college, and they're just looking for somewhere to share that information. It is there, and they can be very extraordinarily interesting, and I highly recommend looking that up and helping yourself to their insights. Finally, don't do it alone. It's dangerous to go alone. Take this. Come get a book club. Find a friend, someone that you're going to read it with. Any kind of people. It could be folks in your church. It could be folks in your local library will put book clubs, things like Well Read Moms and other wonderful institutions and book clubs that will help you find people who are also on that adventure. You can find them on Goodreads and just tons of places. Find people to read with. I once talked to someone and said, I love reading classical literature, but the sad thing is that nobody else reads, or not nobody, few other people read classical literature, so there's no one to talk to. And she said, oh yeah, you wouldn't want to just get the enjoyment out of it for yourself. And she was dumb. No, reading is absolutely the introvert's most corporate activity, right? You're connecting with people in this other world so that you can connect with people in the real world and discuss what it means, what you learned, how you grew, what was effective or interesting to you. My goodness gracious, why wouldn't you want this to be at some level the kind of social event you want it to be? Next, set a gentle pace. If your novel or the book you're reading is 300 or 500 pages, just finding that 20 pages a day, right, pulls you through it in a couple of weeks, or you're going to take a day off or miss a day, yeah, that's fine, absolutely. But the idea of powering through, and you shoot through, you blow through 70 pages and it takes you 2.5 hours, and then you come back thinking, oh man, did I get all, blah, blah, blah. No, no, no. Set reasonable goals and stick to it. Make it your ritual. Block some regular reading time. I especially would encourage you to turn off the TV or turn off your whatever phone or streaming service you're watching, and decide that you're going to put, again, just 20 or 30 minutes into it with regularity, rather than trying to like do it all in an afternoon or power through it. So, those three simple ideas hopefully make it easier to approach. But the real secret is just to keep showing up. The background before you start, the tools that'll help you when you get wobbly or you get confused over it, and finally, some kind of club to schedule or support you can get with friends will help keep you going. But pick up the book, and I promise you, I promise you that the classic is out there. Not that every classic is for you and you'll enjoy every one, but the classic that you haven't read yet, your new favorite book, is out there that will contribute to your life in a more meaningful way than ever before. And added bonus, it coming to understand and apply these things in your recreational reading will also make you a better Bible reader, as well as you recognize that there are things and gaps to overcome, and hopefully yet more enjoyment to take from your reading and this wonderful gift of God that He gave us of relating to story and being able to share these great novels.